She was 7 months pregnant when she hit the floor. The sound was a dull, terrible thud, the kind that echoes in a quiet house at 2 in the morning when no one is supposed to hear. But someone did hear. And what happened next changed everything. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. From the outside, the Harmon home looked like a dream. A white 2-story colonial on Birchwood Lane. A wraparound porch with hanging flower baskets. A golden retriever named Duke who lounged in the front yard and wagged his tail at every neighbor who passed. People drove by that house and smiled. They saw the Christmas lights every December. They saw the couple at the 4th of July block party. Ryan with his easy grin, Maya with her warm eyes, her belly round with new life. They saw a happy family. They saw exactly what Ryan Harmon wanted them to see. Because behind that front door, behind those carefully trimmed hedges and that well-maintained lawn, Maya Harmon was living inside a prison. And she had been for 3 years. Maya Briggs had grown up in a modest brick house in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a mother who worked double shifts at a hospital laundry and a father who had left before she turned 5. She wasn't the kind of woman who had been handed things. She had earned her college scholarship. She had earned her nursing degree. She had earned the quiet dignity she carried in the way she walked, the way she spoke, the way she looked people directly in the eye when she talked to them. She met Ryan Harmon at a hospital fundraiser when she was 26. He was charming, confident, the kind of man who walked into a room and made it feel like the room had been waiting for him. He brought her flowers on their second date. He called when he said he would call. He remembered the name of her childhood cat and the way she liked her coffee. They married 18 months later in a small ceremony in Asheville, surrounded by flowering mountain laurel and people who loved them. The first time he hit her, they had been married for 4 months. It was over a dinner that had gone cold. He came home late. She had waited, and when she said, gently, carefully, that she wished he had called, his hand moved so fast she didn't register what had happened until she felt the sting spreading across her cheekbone. He cried afterward. He held her face in his hands and told her it would never happen again. He bought her roses, 2 dozen, deep red. He was tender for 2 weeks. Then it happened again, and again, and each time, the cycle tightened. The apologies got shorter. The flowers stopped. The tenderness became something he used strategically, like a tool, something he brought out just long enough to keep her from leaving. And Maya who had survived so much, who had worked so hard, who had built herself from nothing, found herself trapped in the oldest, cruelest kind of cage. The kind you can't see from the outside. By the time she discovered she was pregnant, she had stopped telling herself it would get better. She had moved into a quieter, more desperate place. A place where she spent her days calculating how to speak without triggering him, how to move through the kitchen without making the wrong noise, how to exist in her own home without taking up too much space. She had a plan, a fragile, half-formed plan. She was saving money, small amounts, hidden in the lining of a winter coat in the back of the closet. She had started writing down dates and incidents in a notebook she kept inside a hollowed-out book on the bottom shelf. She was going to leave. She just needed a little more time. The only constant comfort she had, the only living thing in that house that looked at her without cruelty, was Duke. Duke was 4 years old, a golden retriever with amber eyes and a disposition so gentle he had never once growled at anything in his life. Ryan had brought him home as a puppy 2 years into the marriage, thinking a dog would make them look more like a normal family. He hadn't anticipated how completely Duke would attach himself to Maya. The dog followed her from room to room. He slept outside the bedroom door when things were bad. He would press his big warm head into her lap when she sat on the kitchen floor crying, and he would stay there, still and steady, until she stopped. Maya used to whisper to him, "You're the only good thing in this house," she told him one night, her fingers buried in his fur, her face still tender from where Ryan's fist had found it. "You know that? You're the only good thing." Duke looked up at her with those amber eyes. Calm, watchful, waiting. As Maya's pregnancy progressed, Ryan did not soften. He became, if anything, worse. There is a particular cruelty in a man who responds to his wife's vulnerability by escalating, who sees her growing body, the evidence of new life, of his own child, and uses it as leverage, who grabs her by the arm, knowing she can't move fast enough to pull away, who stands over her in the kitchen with his voice low and hard, knowing she is calculating every word, every breath, trying to keep the peace. Maya's co-workers at the hospital noticed she wore more concealer than she used to. One of the senior nurses, a woman named Gloria who had been working labor and delivery for 20 years at Mercy Regional in Greenville, South Carolina, pulled Maya aside one afternoon in March and asked her quietly if everything was okay at home. Maya looked at her. The words were right there, sitting at the back of her throat, pressing forward. She said she was fine, just tired. Pregnancy fatigue. Gloria gave her a long look, left a card face down on the break room table, a domestic violence resource hotline, and said nothing more about it. Maya took the card. She folded it and put it in her coat pocket. That night, Ryan found the card. She still doesn't fully remember how the next hour unfolded. She remembers the coldness in his voice. She remembers the way he held the card up between two fingers, the way he looked at her. She remembers backing against the kitchen counter, her hands going instinctively to her stomach. She remembers Duke. Duke had been lying near the back door, the way he always did in the evenings. But at some point during that hour, he had stopped lying down. He was standing now, ears forward, body rigid in a way Maya had never seen before. His amber eyes locked on Ryan with an intensity that made the room feel different. Ryan noticed. He shot the dog a hard look and told him to get back. Duke did not move. Ryan grabbed Maya by the wrist, pulled her toward the hallway. She stumbled, caught herself against the wall, and that was when Duke took one slow, deliberate step forward. Not aggressive, not barking, just forward. Ryan swore at the dog and shoved him back with his foot. Duke backed up, but his eyes never left Ryan. Not once. That night, after Ryan had gone to bed, Maya sat on the kitchen floor with Duke pressed against her side. Her wrist was already bruising. She was trembling in that quiet, controlled way she had learned. The way you tremble when you've trained yourself not to make a sound. She pulled out her phone and looked at the hotline number on the card. She didn't call. Not yet. But she took a photo of the number, saved it under a contact name that looked harmless, tucked it away where Ryan would never think to look. She was getting closer. 2 weeks later, Ryan's behavior shifted again, and not in the direction Maya had hoped. He started coming home later, smelling like whiskey and something harder. The rages that used to be triggered by cold dinners or perceived disrespect now seemed to need no trigger at all. He would walk in the door already wound tight, already looking for somewhere to put it. Their neighbor across the street, a retired schoolteacher named Beverly, had begun to notice things. The way Maya never came outside anymore. The way, when she did, she wore long sleeves in the warm South Carolina spring. The way her eyes moved when she talked, always tracking something just beyond the conversation. Beverly had lived 64 years on this earth. She had seen enough to know what she was looking at. She started leaving her porch light on at night. She told herself it was for the street. But really, it was for the house across the road. A signal. A small, stubborn declaration. Someone is watching. Someone sees you. Maya noticed the light. It made her cry the first time she saw it glowing through the kitchen window at midnight. She didn't know why Beverly had started leaving it on. She didn't know if it meant anything at all. But in a life where nothing felt safe, that small square of yellow light felt like the closest thing to hope she had. Duke noticed it too. He would sit at the window in the evenings, watching the light across the street, his tail moving in slow, gentle sweeps, as if he was keeping track of something, as if he was counting down. It was a Thursday night in early April when everything broke open. Ryan had been drinking since the afternoon. Maya knew at the moment she heard his truck in the driveway, the way he cut the engine too hard, the way his footsteps on the porch were heavier than usual, landing with that particular kind of weight that had nothing to do with his boots. She was in the kitchen, 7 months pregnant, her back aching, her ankles swollen, the kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones when your body is doing the enormous work of growing a life and your mind is simultaneously running every calculation necessary to keep you safe. She had made dinner, set the table, done everything right. It didn't matter. He came through the door looking for a fight, and he found one in nothing. In the way she looked at him, in the way she said hello, in something she couldn't name and couldn't have changed even if she'd tried. The argument escalated the way it always did. Fast, asymmetric, his voice filling the room while hers stayed low, careful, trying to de-escalate. She backed toward the counter. He followed. She said his name, quietly, a plea more than a word. He shoved her, not a slap, Not a grab, a shove, both hands, full force. And Maya, 7 months pregnant, her center of gravity already shifted, her body no longer entirely her own, went down hard. She hit the kitchen floor. That sound, that dull, terrible thud. Time seemed to split open. Ryan stood over her, breathing hard. She lay on the floor, one hand pressed to her stomach, the other splayed on the tile, trying to push herself up. Her vision swam. She could feel the baby moving, a frantic, rolling movement, and some primal part of her locked onto that sensation and held it like a lifeline. She's moving. She's okay. She's moving. And then Duke was there. He had come from the hallway, so quietly neither of them had heard him. He was not barking. He was not growling. He simply placed himself between Maya and Ryan, his big, golden body low and deliberate, his amber eyes fixed on Ryan with an expression that had nothing uncertain in it. Ryan stared at the dog. "Move," he said. Duke did not move. What happened in the next 30 seconds has been described differently by the two people who were there. What is certain is this. Ryan reached toward Maya, and Duke lunged. Not to kill, not with blind aggression. With surgical, protective precision, he caught Ryan's forearm in his mouth, and he held it. Firm, unyielding, communicating in the only language available to him, something that translated, unmistakably, as, "This ends now." Ryan screamed. Maya pulled herself up against the cabinet, both arms around her stomach, and she screamed too. Not in fear this time, but for help. Raw, open, the kind of scream she had swallowed for 3 years finally forcing its way out of her body. Across the street, Beverly's porch light was on. Beverly was already awake. She heard it through her open window, that scream cutting through the April night, and she was on her phone before she had fully processed what she was hearing. She called 911. She stood on her porch in her bathrobe, and she watched the house across the street, and she did not go back inside. The sirens reached Birchwood Lane 6 minutes after Beverly's call. 6 minutes. It is a short time by most measures. It felt like a lifetime to Maya, sitting on the kitchen floor with Duke pressed against her, her back against the cabinet, watching Ryan pace the kitchen with his injured arm held against his chest, his face cycling through something that looked, for the first time, like fear. Because the walls had come down. The carefully constructed illusion of the perfect house on the quiet street had shattered in a single night, and Ryan Harmon, who had operated for 3 years in the safety of secrecy, suddenly understood that secrecy was over. When the officers came through the front door, they found Maya on the floor with the dog beside her, one arm around his neck, her face wet, her expression something beyond exhaustion and this side of relief. They found Ryan across the kitchen, still holding his arm. They found a house that told its own story. The overturned chair, the shattered glass near the back door, the bruising already blooming on Maya's wrist and her shoulder and the side of her hip where she had hit the floor. They asked Maya what had happened. And this time, for the first time, she told them everything. Not the edited version. Not the careful, minimized account she had rehearsed in her head 100 times. Everything. 3 years of it. She talked until her voice gave out, and a female officer crouched beside her on the kitchen floor and held her hand while she talked. Duke sat beside her the entire time. Ryan Harmon was arrested that night, charged with domestic battery, aggravated assault, and felony assault of a pregnant woman. He was walked out of that house in handcuffs past Beverly, who was still standing on her porch across the street. Beverly watched him go. She did not say anything. She didn't need to. Maya was transported to Mercy Regional by ambulance, Duke riding in Beverly's car behind them because neither Beverly nor the paramedics had the heart to separate them. At the hospital, the on-call OB performed an immediate evaluation. The baby, a girl, 7 months developed, stubborn and strong, showed no signs of distress. Her heartbeat on the monitor was steady and sure, a small fierce drumbeat in the middle of all that chaos. Maya lay in the hospital bed listening to that sound, and she wept. Not from pain, not from fear, from something she hadn't felt in so long she had almost forgotten what it was called. Relief. Gloria, the nurse who had left that card on the break room table weeks ago, was on shift that night. She came into Maya's room on her break, sat in the chair beside the bed, and took Maya's hand without saying a word. They sat like that for a long time. In the waiting area down the hall, Beverly was filling out paperwork and making calls and generally handling things the way women of a certain generation handle things, quietly, efficiently, without being asked. and Duke was curled on the floor beside Beverly's chair, his chin resting on his paws, his amber eyes still and watchful. His work, for the night, was done. Maya's daughter was born 6 weeks later, healthy and loud and absolutely certain about her place in the world. They named her June. It was the name Maya had chosen alone, in the quiet of a hospital room before the birth, turning it over in her mind like a stone smoothed by water. June, the month when things grow, the month when light stays longest. She seemed right for it from the very first moment. This small, furious, perfect person who had survived so much before she had even taken her first breath. Maya did not go back to Birchwood Lane. Beverly had offered her the spare room in her house on the day of Maya's discharge, stated matter-of-factly, in the way Beverly stated everything. "You'll come to mine. The room is ready. I've already set up the crib." Maya had stared at her, and then, for the second time in 12 hours, she had cried. She spent the first 4 months of June's life in Beverly's spare room, with its yellow curtains and the window that looked out over the garden Beverly had been tending for 30 years. Duke slept at the foot of the crib every night. He took his responsibilities seriously. Ryan Harmon entered a plea agreement 4 months after his arrest. The charges were substantial. The evidence, Maya's notebook, the hospital records, the photographs, Beverly's testimony, the 911 recording, was overwhelming. He was sentenced to 7 years. He did not contest it. Maya returned to work at Mercy Regional when June was 5 months old, part-time at first, then full. Her colleagues, Gloria, the other nurses, the doctors who had watched her for years with quiet concern and said nothing, welcomed her back with a warmth that nearly undid her. Someone had put flowers on her locker. She stood in the break room and looked at them for a long time. She found an apartment in the spring, a second-floor unit in a building with good light and a small balcony and a park across the street where she could take June in the mornings before work. She painted the walls herself over a long weekend, Beverly supervising from a folding chair she had brought without being asked. It was a soft yellow, the color of light through curtains, the color of something beginning. Duke made the move with her, of course. He adjusted to the new apartment with the easy confidence of a creature who understands that home is not a place, but a person. He claimed the sunny spot by the balcony door as his own within the first hour and settled into the new rhythms of their life. The morning walks, the park, June's first sounds of laughter, the particular joy of a small child who has grown up with a large dog and considers this entirely normal. Maya thinks about the kitchen floor sometimes. She thinks about what it cost her to get to this room, this light, this life. She thinks about the years she spent calculating, surviving, holding herself together with whatever she had. She thinks about the card on the break room table, and the porch light across the street, and the night a golden retriever stood between her and everything that had been hurting her and simply refused to move. She thinks about what it means that an animal, a creature with no language, no legal standing, no way to understand courtrooms or charges or the slow machinery of justice, had understood something that the world around her had missed for 3 years. That she was worth protecting. That what was happening to her was wrong. That it needed to stop. Duke is 7 years old now. A little slower in the mornings. A little grayer around the muzzle. He still sleeps at the foot of June's bed. Still presses his big head into Maya's lap when she sits on the floor. Still watches the door with those amber eyes when he hears a sound he doesn't recognize. Still waiting. Still keeping watch. June is 2.5. She says his name. Do. With the particular authority of a toddler who has never questioned that she is loved. She wraps her small arms around his neck and buries her face in his fur, and he holds perfectly still, patient and warm and present. Beverly comes for dinner on Sundays. She sits at Maya's table and they eat and talk, and sometimes, if June has gone down for an early nap, they sit in the quiet of the apartment with their coffee and don't say very much at all. Just 2 women and a dog and a Sunday evening and all the ordinary, extraordinary piece of a life that almost wasn't. Some heroes don't wear uniforms. Some heroes don't make headlines. Sometimes the hero is a golden retriever who slept outside a bedroom door every night for 3 years, waiting for the moment he was needed. And when that moment came, he didn't hesitate. Because love, real love, doesn't calculate the risk. It just stands. Before you go anywhere, stop for just one moment. Because if you made it to the end of this story, you are not an ordinary viewer. Most people click away. Most people scroll past. Most people never sit with a story long enough to let it actually land. But you stayed. You stayed through the kitchen floor. You stayed through the porch light. You stayed through the sirens and the hospital room and the yellow curtains and a little girl named June who made it into this world because a golden retriever refused to stand down. That means something. It means you are the kind of person who still believes stories matter, who still believes that what happens to people, real or imagined, deserves to be witnessed, who understands, somewhere deep in their bones, that the act of paying attention to suffering is itself a form of love. You do not need to be a hero to save someone's life. You do not need a badge or a courtroom or a dramatic moment. Sometimes all it takes is a porch light left on, a card placed quietly on a table, a willingness to see what is right in front of you and say, I see this. I am not going to look away. Now, here is what I need from you right now, in the next 10 seconds. First, hit that subscribe button. This channel exists to tell stories that matter. Stories about women who survive impossible things. Stories about justice that comes slowly and then all at once. Stories about the unexpected places courage shows up, in a neighbor's porch light, in a nurse's quiet gesture, in a dog who decided enough was enough. Second, leave a comment. Tell me what hit you hardest in this story. Was it the porch light? Was it the moment Duke stepped forward? Was it June, that small fierce baby who survived against all odds? Tell me. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. And your response to this story shapes what I create next. You are not a passive viewer here. You are part of this. Third, share this video. Not because the algorithm rewards it. Not because I'm asking you to do me a favor, but because there is a woman who needs to hear this story today. And one more thing, before you go, whatever you are carrying right now, whether it is fear or grief or the particular exhaustion of surviving something no one around you can see, you are not alone in it. This community is here. I am here. Thank you for watching.